That is. Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
Before I get to the next question with Dr. Pierre, I just want to say to our viewers, our listeners out there, that you have the option of either calling or typing whatever comment or question you have in the shout box. And to call, you can call via WhatsApp 647-922-0179. I'll repeat that number again, 647-922-0179. Dr. Pierre, in your research, what are some of, who are the kind of people that you have found to have been involved in sex trafficking? Because somewhere in your writings, you've said that these people see themselves as legitimate business people, and that the demand for sex is very high in that part of the region, speaking of the Caribbean, because in the Caribbean, it has one of the largest brothels in the world, that you found 86 brothels in the region that had 5 or more persons in the stable. And that to me was very perplexing, because I never really perceived our region to be so, to be so prominent in that regard. Can you speak to us on that issue?
Well, thank you very much. Well, just a little background. Our company or firm was consulted by CARICOM to conduct a study of human trafficking into the Carrefour region. The project is a very large project. It was sponsored by the European Union. So with that information, we were able to sort of, with the consent of the governments within the region, we were able to go into the region, to speak to persons at will, and to sort of to unearth one of some of the challenges we had with the whole issue of human trafficking. So, for example, the Caribbean has about 7,000 islands in the Caribbean. So the Caribbean, it's a large area. It's generally unmanned. Okay. Also, last year we were on the ground in Venezuela. As a research, we found out that there were over 300 islands in Venezuela, 300 islands in Guyana. So so most of the governments do not have the resources to man all these islands. So human traffickers operate at will within the region. And in terms of our study, we found out that the Caribbean has one of the largest brothels in the region. And that demand for sex, that is demand for men to fulfill the fantasy, it is very, very, very high. And as a result, demand and supply, the human traffickers, what they do is that they are saying that they are just providing a service. They are providing a service to persons that want their need. And we see in certain countries, there is a need for more sexual excitement than others. So we realize that, for example, in our study, most of the human traffickers do not have any police record, any criminal record. They're just normal people, your average person in the schools, your average persons, just normal person. And that is it's almost like a perfect crime, because you do not know, because for example, most law enforcement focuses on human trafficking or person maybe with criminal records. But most of these people have no criminal records, they're just a normal person. And that is what we found out with doing our study.
Okay. There's in relation to that, I wanted to ask you, would you say, now, not just Grenada, but the region is very tourism driven. It's a market, it's a great market for tourism. Have you found that any correlation between our tourism industry and this issue of human trafficking and the demand for sex?
Right. Well, yeah, I would say a resounding yes. I think that there is a correlation between tourism, sex tourism, and human trafficking. In fact, we conducted during our study, we interviewed a tourist who, the reason why he came to the country, because within the package was he would be able to have it for his choice, this to have intercourse with a young girl.
Wait, Dr. Pierre, what did you say? Within the package?
Within this package, he would, he got, it was encouraged, he got the opportunity to meet and have experience with young children.
So you're saying that in the same way when a package is being sold, you will be told that you can go on a tour here, on a tour there, and you get meals, and you, in the same way you have sex being part of that package.
Yes, we have seen that experience. Because what we have seen, okay, I said, and we have interviewed many of the journalists, many of the tours, we have interviewed many of the traffickers. And what we see is that people have certain beliefs, certain superstition. So, for example, persons believe that when you, I hope that we all adults here, so when you have sex with a virgin, for example, you get maybe certain success, you get rich in business, maybe it heals you, you get favor. So their desire is to, have sex with a virgin. People also believe that, I met a guy, interviewed him, what he wants, what gets him excited, what gives him his jollies, is to have relationship or have sexual relationship with people who cannot give consent. That's a mindset. So someone cannot give consent, so he wants, initially somebody with quote unquote what we term it in our records, okay, the children without pubic hair. That is his specialization. So that gets him excited. So as long as you have the money, most things are past. People give a blind eye, and it is rampant. In fact, one of our researchers who in that night who went to interview the person, the hotel that he was staying in, they knew about the study, and they told him that he cannot stay there anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, it is, and that is rampant all over the region. We know, for example, with the elephant test, people buy elephant test because they believe it, gives you, some sort of special powers.
Or we pronounce it aphrodisiac or something like that.
Yeah. So child trafficking is very common, especially in the Caribbean here. And what we have to do now, in fact, these programs is to educate people, because what we've seen from our research is that especially children, in the lower income countries, more children are being exploited than children in the developed countries. Okay, so for example, let's say in high-income persons, the majority of persons who are exploited are adults, but in the low-income persons, the majority of the 50-50 that are children. And so we have to be very vigilant. Okay, and the whole idea about if sometimes people ask, can anybody be trafficked? Okay, so there are, maybe the law enforcement or people may say on the news, we will be careful. Anyone can be tracked, okay? Okay, but I mean, from my information from over 300 studies, okay, not everybody can be tracked, okay? Okay, you know, you see the movie Taken as our guest mentioned, okay? In order for, not anyone can be trafficked, but in order for a person, only persons who are vulnerable, okay, as I mentioned before, can be trafficked, okay? And so when we look at the whole issue of vulnerability, in order for you to be vulnerable, there are certain conditions, okay? From our research, we have identified there are about 10 factors that a person, that in order for someone to be trafficked must fall into. So the first one, for example, in North America, is a white girls, young women under the age of 25, who were born in the country of their victimization, meaning that generally let's say in Canada, in North America, many young white women are also trafficked. Also, racial or ethnic minority groups, so they are more likely to be trafficked than the general population. We also found that persons within the native or indigenous population are more likely to be trafficked than persons in the general population. In fact, during our study, okay, when we went to the interior, so we went to the interior in most of the countries, in Belize, in Suriname, in Guyana, and so we conducted a survey. And what we found out was that persons within the indigenous community, within the interior and the rural areas, are twice as likely to be trafficked than persons in the urban area, with only one exception, and that exception is in the Dominican Republic. Okay, so in indigenous community, persons who with developmental challenges are more likely to be trafficked than other race, ex-convicts or parole women. Okay, they are more likely to be trafficked. Also, persons with what is called persons who are within the LGBTQ community, they are also trafficked. Also, persons, poverty, who are vulnerable groups, they are most likely to be trafficked. So children with what is called, with that experience gender-based violence are more likely to be trafficked than the general population. We also found out that persons with what is called high ACE scores, that is adverse childhood experiences, they are more likely to be trafficked than the general population. And what is called economic or smuggling migrants, they are generally most likely to be trafficked than their general population. And in some countries, half of the population are vulnerable due to economics, so most likely they are most likely to be trapped.
Okay. At this point, I want to bring in our co-host. I want to give him an opportunity to come in on the conversation. But before I do, I want to remind those out there who are viewing or listening out there that you can either put your comment in the shout box or you can call via WhatsApp on 647-922-0179. It's WhatsApp, okay? 647-922-0179. And, so that you can interact with us here this evening. Brother Delbert.
Mic muted, bro.
Brother Delbert, are you here with me? Brother Delbert?
Muted.
Your mic is muted. I said that I want to... Yes, okay.
Yes.
Anything from you at this juncture? Because quite a bit has passed here already. I mean, I'm just...
Yes. I started off by saying this is a lot more frightening than I thought. And my eyes are I'm being totally re-educated or being educated on this topic, and I did not realize that it was so pervasive in the Caribbean, and that we actually had functioning brothels and all those vehicles that encourage prostitution. I have long known that there has been a link between tourism and sex trafficking, but I thought that primarily happened in Southeast Asia. I did not think that it was so rampant in the Caribbean. So I have a few questions, but I'll start off with one because both Dr. Pierre and Ms. Hadley spoke about the difference between human smuggling and the sex trafficking. So my question is there an intersection when one becomes the other? Because I have heard of instances where migrants were smuggled across state lines in many cases, or maybe sometimes promised opportunity. But generally, if the family or themselves are not able or to pay the smuggler, that person can become a trafficking victim. How often does that happen? What did your research say? And is it something, and if so, what can be done about it? Because human smuggling for economic reasons is a big thing. It's happening in every corner of the world right now.
This is okay. Well, this is okay. I can speak, and then Mrs. Headley, you can speak after. That's okay. Oh, good. Okay. Based on our research, okay, what we found we found that about 37% of persons who are smuggled end up being trafficked. Okay, most people within the region they smuggle because of economic activities, because of the human condition, economic condition in their country. Mm-hmm. So, for example, persons in Venezuela, there is economic and political instability in Venezuela. People will move from Venezuela. So, for example, in one of my research, I interviewed a woman in the United States, and she had her niece. Her niece had experienced sexual abuse, and she wanted her niece to leave Haiti to the United States. And she arranged for her daughter to be smuggled from Haiti to the United States. Okay, and within that process, okay, I'll just tell you the different process. Okay, we found out that there are different smuggling routes. Okay, in most cases, let's say there are two epicenters of human trafficking in the region. I will now use human trafficking, human smuggling interchangeably. Okay, yeah. Because the whole idea of human trafficking, it's transnational. It's transnational. So human trafficking comes with what is called the gun trade. It comes with also the drugs for gun. It comes with the drugs and gun for food. The drugs that go for rice, for shellfish, things like contraband, tobacco, pornographies. Okay, all of that comes in illicit animals and plants. All form that whole of human trafficking. So generally, you have the human trafficking connection. You have the human trafficking route from, let's say, established in the north with Haiti. So a lot of the Haitian players are very sophisticated. They get a lot of their connection or influence or indoctrination or what we call all the support and financing from organized crime in France and in Europe. So Haitians play a very, very, very big part. And from Haiti now, Haiti has hundreds of miles of unprotected borders, have the economic problem. So the human traffickers run at will in Haiti. So for example, from Haiti you can smuggle. So for example, what we found out in Jamaica, for example, when two persons are smuggled from Jamaica, they don't normally go through the normal airport route. They are smuggled from Jamaica. They are centered in a place called Clarendon, okay? And then from they are then shipped to Haiti. And then from Haiti now, they are now moved down to the Southern Caribbean through the French Antilles, the Dutch Antilles. Then from there they move from the Dutch Antilles.